Hello students, this is Ron Denault, and I'm preparing this video to get you guys ready for chapter 4, which is about decisions and decision making in code. So I'm going to use this program called CokeOrCokeZero, and the way this program works is if the user selects either Coke or CokeZero, it'll output that they did so, but any other input by the user will output that they do not prefer Coke or CokeZero. So it's an or decision, so it's kind of simple. We're going to start with an if statement. So we have a variable called drink. It's an empty string, as you can see here. So if drink is equal to the string Coke, or if drink, the variable, is equal to the string CokeZero, then, and I'm going to hit enter here, tab over twice, and we're going to do a system.console.writeLine, and this is going to output in the program what we want to have output. So in this case, we're going to output a string called customer name. As you can see, there's a user input here, customer name. Okay, so customer name, and because this is a string, it has to be opened with a quote. So customer name, colon, space, close the string, space, concatenate, space, customer name. Now remember, customer name is equal to whatever the user inputs. So when the program starts, it's going to ask them to input their name. So that's what's going to be outputted here. Okay, so I'm going to close the parenthesis, and then I'm going to do another system console. And in fact, to make things easier, instead of retyping the whole thing again, I'm going to copy this line of code, paste it, and make a few changes. So the next write line is, instead of customer name, it's going to be drink. Now remember, drink is an empty string here, but drink is equal to the second question that's asked by the user for input. Okay, so what is their preference? So if they type Coke or they type CokeZero, it'll output that. But if they type anything else, it'll output does not prefer Coke or CokeZero. So that's what we're putting here. So drink, colon, and we're going to concatenate with drink. Okay, so if they type in Coke or they type in CokeZero, it's going to output that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say, if neither of those conditions apply, in other words, else, and I'll paste again for another one, customer name, but this time it's not a string, it's the actual variable, customer name. So I'm going to get rid of the quotes. Okay. So customer name, and then we're going to concatenate, and we're going to end it with a string. Okay. Whoops, we can't have a space here because the variable is called customer name. So we're going to end it with a string, and the string is going to say does not prefer Coke or CokeZero. Close the string. Now we have to end the if statement. Every if statement needs to be ended. So I'm going to end if. So let's take a look at this code just to make sure that before we run it, everything works fine. So the program is called CokeOrCokeZero, and what happens is if drink, which starts off as an empty string but turns into the string that the user inputs, okay, so it might be Coke, it might be CokeZero, it might be Pepsi, it might be Mountain Dew, whatever it is, that's fine. And the user is also going to input a string called a name. Remember, any input by the user is a string. Since the output is also a string, we don't have to convert it at all, so there's no conversion required here. So we have two inputs by the user, and then we say if drink, in other words, if what the user inputted under drink is equal to Coke, or if drink is equal to Coke Zero, then it's going to output the customer name. It's also going to output what they typed in. If it's not Coke or Coke Zero, it's going to say does not prefer Coke or Coke Zero. So let's try it. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I have a VB folder right here, and I'm going to save it as CokeOrCokeZero.vb inside my VB folder, and click Save. So now let's try it and make sure it works. So I'm going to go open up a command prompt, and I'm already in my VB folder, so I'm going to type VBC, which stands for Visual Basic Console, and the name of the program is CokeOrCokeZero.vb, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to type the name of the program again, CokeOrCokeZero, and just hit enter, and the prompt should open up. Enter the customer names. So I'll just say John Smith, and I'm going to say Coke, and hit enter. So the output is customer name John Smith, drink Coke. Now let's run the program again, and we'll put John Smith again. Whoops, John Smith, no big deal. And this time I'm going to put Coke Zero. So John Smith, drink Coke Zero, and then I'm going to run it one more time. Whoops, and I'm going to say John Smith, and I'm going to input Pepsi. And the output is John Smith does not prefer Coke or Coke Zero. Now notice how my string that I put in there, I didn't put a space. So John Smith does, there's no space there, so I'm going to go back to my file, and I am going to put a space right here. Control S to save it. Go back to my program, run it again, and run it again, and let's try it one more time. John Smith, Pepsi. Now it says John Smith does not prefer Coke or Coke Zero. Okay, so that's an example. Now, an important thing you have to consider is the large small program that's due on Sunday has 3 scenarios. You have 3 numbers, so it's going to be a little bit more complicated in this program, because this program only had two decisions you had to make. It's either one or the other. Well, the large small has 3 numbers. And don't forget, I'm going to change your numbers to make sure that the program will output the large and small under any condition. So keep that in mind. So I'm sure you guys can figure that out. If you have any questions, send me an email and I'll be glad to answer it for you. Good luck this week, and thanks for watching the video.